Welcome to the hunt.
Good Sunday afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to the HuntCast podcast. Greg and Doug here in Summitwood Studios, and we're excited about this episode. We're going to give you our first bow breakdown, and we're going to jump into elk season Doug version. So it's definitely a story for the ages, that's for sure. But to start off, we're going to give you some updated news. Our friends over at Gas Bowstrings, for 2023, were announced as the Golden Arrow Award Gold winner for Best Bowstrings. And there's a reason we use them. There's a reason that we sell them in the shop. There's a reason millions and millions of people are using them. And we just kind of wanted to give them a shout out quick, just because they do make great strings. And it's a heck of an award to win. I think they've won it a couple years in a row now. So congratulations to Eric and the team. And that was really the only updated news we had. So I'm going to let Doug start off with our first bow breakdown. And what bow are we talking about today, Doug?
So today we're going to talk about the Prime RVX 32.
32, right?
Yep. So this is, they've made a few improvements from last year, which I happen to shoot the Prime RVX 2 from last year. Love the bow. You know, the day I picked it up in the shop,
right?
I said, man, this bow is just something special about it. I loved it from day one. And so I'm actually pretty excited to shoot this one to see what they've done, if they've done anything to it.
Differently, right?
Yeah, different, because like I said, I just absolutely love last year's RVX. I'm sorry, RevX. This year is the RVX.
Yeah.
So basically it's the same bow. There's been a few upgrades to it. I know that they've added the pick mount to the front so you can mount your sight. And then they've also included the integrated rest feature. So if you use a QAD, you can mount it directly to the integrate.
Right. So that's a lot of people don't know this. So QAD is the one that has the patent on the integrate system. Now, obviously, Hamskia also makes an direct mount. The difference there is it has to be a tapped riser so that you can screw the mount on for a Hamskia, like an Epsilon or the Everest. So if you have a bow that is integrate, you cannot put a Hamskia to mount on that rail.
Right.
So
there's a special mount. There's a mount that will kind of wrap around and go right to the burger.
Right.
Just like every other rest.
Currently there is. Now, if you do an Epsilon or an Everest with the core mounting system, if that bow is tapped in the back of the riser where the integrate would be, then you can just screw that little core mount to the bow, and then your rest fits on it. So it becomes in line, similar to the QAD integrate.
Right. But this doesn't have that. So
correct.
If you want to shoot the Hamskia, you've got to use the burger hole.
And what is funny to me is that Prime pushes the Epsilon pretty heavy, their branded version.
Kind of strange.
Yeah, that it doesn't just fit on the bow.
Yeah, that is kind of strange. So, but yeah, I'm like I said, I'm curious to shoot it. Love mine, and we'll see what this year's looks like.
Yeah. So for those of you that aren't familiar with Prime has been around since, I believe, 2010. So we're coming in 14, 15 years somewhere. Their big thing a couple years ago was the dual cam system. They call them inline bows. So you had these two gigantic cams with like what looked like 25 cables on the bow. But the new ones, last year when they came out with the RevX, they went back to a modular cam where you have to have a separate mod to change draw length. They also are most well known for their center grip.
Right.
So center grip gives you a better holding area. There's more weight distribution through the bow.
Right.
So it's very stable, 100% very stable compared to most bows.
Well balanced.
Yeah.
Very well balanced.
So that's like their big thing now is that center grip riser. And then they have what they brought out on the RevX is now on the RVX is the core cam system, which we kind of just talked about a little bit. So it is a modular system. So anytime you change draw length, you do have to change mods. And they have, built-in stability into the bow. So this bow, similar to the RevX, has that big swoop at the bottom. It almost looks like they messed up when they made the riser, but it's not. It's there for a reason. No one knows the exact specifics or sciences behind it besides the guys that are building the bows, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But it looks really cool when it's hanging. And it honestly, it serves a purpose because the bow doesn't tip very easy.
No.
And then their last big thing that's kind of throughout all of their models is their nano grip technology, which is an aerogel. It's an aerospace technology piece, and it is a double-sided, so it's on the back of the grip and the front of the grip, so you're not touching any aluminum when you're shooting.
Right.
So, guys hunting in the cold weather, they all complain about touching cold aluminum if they don't wear gloves. You won't have an issue with this.
Yeah.
And they had that on the RevX as well.
Yes.
So, Doug, why don't you break down some of the numbers here on the RVX?
So, the RVX 2, which is the 32 now, it's 32 inches axle to axle. The brace height is 6 1/4. Draw length is anywhere from 26 to 30. And
in half-inch increments.
Yes. And the let off is 85% max, and you can scale that back. I'm not sure exactly how far you can scale it back. I'm guessing probably 75% maybe, but you can adjust that mod to adjust the let off. And then the other thing that's very unique to Prime that is kind of it's a big selling point is the strings for life.
Yeah.
So Prime will send you every 2 years. They will send you a brand new set of strings.
Correct. You
forever.
just have to make sure your bow is registered when you purchase it.
Yeah.
And basically they won't, send it to you early. But if you, go the 2 years, like all manufacturers tell you every 2 years, change out your strings. If you call them and your bow is registered correctly, they will send a set of strings to your local Prime dealer, and you go in and get them put on. You just pay for the install.
Yeah. That's really nice.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That's over the course of 5-6 years, you're talking a few $100s you'll save. So I really like that. And you know what you spoke about a little bit. What really drew me to this bow was I was building a new bow to take out west. So I was looking for something that was going to be really light that I could pack and hike with. And that center grip technology allowed me to build a bow that didn't require a ton of weight. I didn't have to put a big stabilizer on there and load it with weight. This thing was perfectly level and just perfectly balanced without adding any extra weight to it. So that was huge for me because, like I said, I was trying to get something really light, and it fit the bill. And I love the bow. Of all the bows I've had over the last 40 years, this is absolutely one of my favorites. So.
And so to keep in mind, he's talking about the RevX, which is the bow from last year.
Yes.
Neither one of us have shot the RVX yet. We've had some people come into the shop and test shot them and stuff, but I haven't, and I know Doug hasn't shot it. So for those of you that are interested, aside from the numbers Doug gave you, so right now IBO speed, according to them, is 340. The draw weight is available from 40 to 80 pounds. And the weight on the RVX is 4.4. So where a 0.1 pound difference came in, I'm guessing that batteries died in the scale, and when they resetted it, goofed something up.
Yeah.
But the RevX came in at 4.5. And again, we're talking Doug's 32 and this RVX 32 or RVX 2. So they do make them in 4 and 6, which would be a 34-inch axle-to-axle and a 36-inch axle-to-axle, both in the RVX and the RevX.
Right.
So obviously you're going to change some weight a little bit because you're adding some riser and whatnot.
Yeah.
But if after hearing all this, you're interested, on our YouTube channel this afternoon, you will see a breakdown. Both of us are going to get to shoot the bow, and we're going to check it through a chrono. Now, obviously, we're not running it at 70, and we're not running it at 30 inches of draw. This will be set up at 60-29, and so we're going to check it with those features. So we're going to check, draw weight and speed, and just kind of feel the bow out and see what it does. Doug's obviously very familiar because of his RevX, and it is the same cam, so everything should be the same.
Yes.
But I guess we'll find out when we shoot it.
Yeah.
So,
and we're going to shoot it with, just shy of 400 grain arrows. I'm going to shoot my 385 grain arrows through it. Kind of 485 grain arrows through it. This way, it's kind of a real world test, not IBO.
Yeah, shooting.
Nobody's hunting with IBO specs. So my 485 grain arrows through it, and that'll give us some real real speeds.
So what you would expect out in the woods, not just, flinging at 60, the safest arrow we could shoot is 300 grains. And of course that's going to be super fast, but
yeah.
I don't know anybody that I know personally shoots a 300 grain hunting arrow.
Yeah,
so.
no.
But
yes, I'm looking forward to that. So
so other than that, the bow, one of the big camo patterns they do is called Morel Scar. So if you watch the video later this afternoon, we have a black riser with the Morel Scar limbs, and the Morel's pretty cool. I know they offer like an olive green or olive drab, and I think they do a tan, right?
Yes.
Yeah, because your bow's
mine's the green.
The green. That's right.
Mine's green.
So check them out. It's g5prime.com. And like I said, if you are interested in a prime bow, we are a prime dealer at High Times Archery, so we can get you set up.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so check out that video later on. We didn't want to waste too much time because this next segment is, I don't even know how to start the segment to lead you into this. But so, like we've told you in the first episode, Doug and I are very good friends. And so he went out to Montana this past season on a bow hunt for elk. And the whole time I'm still here in Pennsylvania, and he's texting me and letting me know what he's seeing and so on and so forth. And I think it was your last day, right?
It was.
Last day.
Yep.
He sends me a picture of an elk, a bull. And I'm like, so shoot it. Because I didn't know how far it was. But so go ahead. We'll start there. So Doug's in a blind in an alfalfa field, correct?
Yes.
Alfalfa field.
Yeah.
Text me. This is probably, I'm going to guess it was around noon, 12:30 my time.
No, it was later than that. Yeah, because this was the afternoon hunt.
Okay.
We never hunted the alfalfa in the morning because they're in the alfalfa all night long.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
we would kind of go into the elevations in the morning and then wait for them in the alfalfa in the evenings as they kind of head down and get, start feeding at night. So
he's in a blind. The last thing I hear from him is a text of a picture of a bull elk. And about an hour later, I get another text. I shot him.
Well, you got a picture of the bloody pants and the bloody hands.
That's right, yeah. No, that wasn't that one, was it?
Oh, no.
No, that wasn't that one.
No, that was... This is over the course of a couple of months, so...
Right. Yeah, so you'll understand right. as we go. So this is the first time he goes out this year. He goes out, it's archery season.
Yeah.
And all right, so go ahead. You're in the blind. Bull is there, 100 yards away is the picture I get.
Yeah. So this is September. This is the third week of September. September 17th, 18th is when I went out. So to start the whole hunt, the first day I was out, I had, and I'm not exaggerating, I had literally 70 to 80 elk out in the alfalfa out in front of me. There were probably 5 or so good shooter bulls. There were another 10 or 12 below average bulls and a couple of, little, raghorns and spikes and stuff. And probably, 40 or so cows. So that first night they were coming. I heard them long before I saw them and just waiting and waiting. And they kind of feed closer and closer because I was on the far end of the field. And this field was about 500 and change, 550 yards or so across the field. So it took a little time to get across, but slowly but surely they did. And I had just an absolute monster, 330 class bull, 6x7 come out. He was kind of far. He was at 80 yards. And my buddy Keith, who was guiding me, was about a half mile away up on the road, glassing the field. And he's like, kill him. He's texting me. I said, all right. So he knows better than I do. So took a shot at 80, clean missed him right under his belly. And that was kind of the end of that. It was getting late. It was getting dark. And that was the first night. And then each night it got worse and worse. It kind of just tailed off. Went from, say, 70, 80 elk the first day to 30 the second day. Come Tuesday, I think we might have seen 5 or 6. Wednesday, we saw 0. We did not see one elk. So we went from 70 or 80 down to 0. The weather had turned on us. It kind of got rainy and real wet for a couple of days. And so it was the last day. It was Friday night. I got into that blind probably about 3 o'clock or so in the afternoon. Gets dark out there about 7 o'clock. So about 4 hours in the blind. And they just started coming. I could hear them. They were bugling, coming. But at this time, it was just one bull, and it was a 6x6 and about 30 cow. They came in, and it was a slow process. I just watched them for hours, just getting closer and closer and closer and closer. And then it got to the 6x6 came in, got to about 60 yards. That's when I took the shot at 60. I hit him back. It wasn't a great shot because he had taken a full stride from the time I released the arrow. By the time the arrow got there, traveling 60 yards, it was a full step. Now, when an elk takes a full stride, it's
not like a deer.
It's 3 feet, 4 feet. So that he took one step. I hit him back, but I hit him good because he was bleeding profusely.
Right.
I'm just watching it. It looked like a faucet, and I watched this bull just kind of. I knew he was hurt immediately. He knew he was hurt immediately. And he kind of just walked away, and then he laid down. He laid down about, I shot him at 60, maybe 100 and 120 yards out. He just laid down, and I thought that was it. Well, that's it. I'm done. I start to look around and gather up my stuff, and all of a sudden he gets up, and he walks another 50, 60, 70 yards, lays down again. And, okay, this is it. He can't get up again, right? And I could see him. He can't, at this point, he can't even hold his head up.
Right.
He's just so drained. He's lost a ton of blood. He'd hold his head up and his head would just fall down. And there was one point where he was just laying there, head flat on the ground, ears flat on the ground. And, that was pretty much it. Nope. Got up again and walked another 100 yards. And this time he started doing that side shuffle.
The little wobble.
Yes. The wobble and the side shuffle, and boom, falls down again, flat on his side, head down. There's nothing. He's done. Got to be done. And at this point, it's pouring rain at this point. So, which I wasn't worried about because it's a big field. He's laying right there. I'm watching the whole time. So not a big deal. So he's laying there. He's motionless for probably a good 15 minutes. So now I'm convinced that this is it. I really start to gather up my stuff and get everything put away in my pack. And then I hear another bugle. I can't see him, but I hear another bugle off the alfalfa in the thick stuff. And then this big bull comes out. He's bigger than the one I shot.
Right.
Less points though.
Okay.
He was just real heavy, real big, mature, heavy. I think he was a 5x6, and he didn't give any attention to the cows. He went right to my bull laying there, and he came up behind him to challenge him, I guess, because he wanted his cows. Came up behind him, kind of sniffed him around the back, around his wound, and then he just actually walked away. He left him alone.
Right.
It was almost like a respect thing. He knew that he couldn't fight. Yeah. So somehow my bull gets up and just dragged himself away. He had enough in him to say, you know what? I can't do this.
Right.
You win. Take the cows. I'm going off. I'm done. And he drags himself out of the field. Now at this point, it's getting pretty dark. So I cannot see him with the naked eye at this point, but through my glasses, I can. So I can watch him through the binos, and he kind of goes down into this little bit of a little dip. There's a drainage out on the far end of the field. He kind of disappears into that, and I never see him again. So I'm thinking, oh, he's laying right there. Yeah. Now, this is Friday night, and I've got a flight Saturday morning to fly back home.
Right.
So with the pouring rain, we just wanted to let him lay and just let's get him in the morning. We'll go with first light, 7 a.m., get out there, get him, get you to the airport, and get you out of here. Perfect. So Saturday morning, go out there, go to the last spot where we saw him. Now, there's no chance of seeing blood, but he's got to be laying right there. Get there. There's nothing. He's not there. You can't see any blood. The place is filthy with elk, so there's tracks everywhere. You have no idea which tracks
one is which.
Yeah, so we just kind of, there's 4 of us at this point. We just kind of scour and through all the thick stuff and all the highs and lows, and he's got to be laying underneath one of these pines, in the scrub stuff. He's got to be laying right here. Well, nothing. So now it's getting late. I'm looking at my watch and I'm saying, well, I got, I either have to cancel my flight or I need to get out of here right now and get to the airport. Because Bozeman, I fly in and out of Bozeman. Bozeman is about an hour from the lodge. So I need to go. So I said to Keith, I said, do I cancel my flight? He's like, no, don't cancel the flight. He's here. I'm going to get him. You get on your plane, go. I'll call you when I got him. Fantastic. So a couple hours go by, nothing. He can't find him. He's not here. So what he does is he kind of pulls out and just watches the field. He says, because what's going to happen at this point, if I can't see him, the birds are going to find him. And the birds are going to tell me exactly where he is. So sure enough, about noon, I get a text and birds are, circling over your elk. I got him. That's the good news. The bad news is he's on private property. He went across the property line, and it's only 50 yards.
Right.
He crossed the line by 50 yards and died on the neighbor's property.
Right.
All right. Well, what do we do? Oh, he says, so the protocol here is I've got to just contact the landowner and get his permission, and I'll go in and get him.
Right.
Okay. So reaches out to the landowner. He denies him. You cannot go on my property. Even though we have a dead elk, we know it's dead.
Right.
Nope. No one goes on the property but me. I'll get him for you. Which anyone who's ever packed out an elk knows that that's something that
somebody's not volunteering to do this
for somebody else.
Right.
It's just too much work, and there's no way. And I knew he would never do this. So then called the game warden. And the game warden, super nice guy, took it upon himself to say, you know what, I'm going to go and speak to landowner direct. And went over there, spoke to him. He denied him too. You're not going on the property. No one goes on the property but me. Now, I'm sure this guy was bow hunting himself, so I understand he didn't want us to go there and blow the whole place out. So I get that. But, I figured maybe at the end of the archery season, the meat is shot anyway at this point. Maybe he'd let us go in there and get it. So weeks go by.
Yeah. So I'm going to stop Doug real quick. So Doug gives me this story like while he's at the airport. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So for literally, it was 2 or 3 weeks, I would text Doug like every 3 days.
Yeah.
Did you hear from him yet? Did you hear from him yet? Did you hear from him yet? And, he tells me what happened with the game warden. He tells me, the guy's bow hunting. And in my head, he's describing to me where this all happened. And, the elk went in, 50, 75 yards into this guy's property. Now, if you're coming in, and going from where he accesses the property, you would blow the whole place out. But if, in my head, I'm going, well, if you just walk through the field and go in the backside where he's not at,
right,
you're really not blowing up. Yeah, you might spook something, but you're not going to blow a whole, area out just because... you went in and got an elk. And at this point, birds are there. So if birds are there, coyotes, wolves, whatever may be there.
Yeah.
Not to mention anything else that's going to want to feed on it. So
you're going to spook the elk anyway.
Right.
So,
yeah. So,
and we went through that property. 4 of us just traipsed through there. We blew elk out the day before, and they're gone for miles.
Yeah.
So, and there's a river. The elk never made it to the river, and it's a pretty good sized river. It's the Shields River, and I know because I walked through it every single night and got soaked. It was well over my boots, but that was the only way to access the alfalfa without blowing the elk out. I had to, had to cross that river. So I knew that this guy would never cross that river to go get that elk
from that side.
Right. So
now the game commission's been denied.
Yeah.
The guides have been denied. Doug still doesn't have an elk.
Nope.
We think it's dead.
Yep.
Well, it should be dead because there's birds flying around it. So go ahead now.
So, and at this point, once Keith saw the birds, he actually sent the landowner a pin. Here it is. Sent him the pin on GPS. This way, he's not looking. There's no guesswork.
Right.
Walk to that pin, and you're going to find the elk. Nothing. No response. Nothing. So I just kind of chalked it up as to bad luck and kind of whatever. Try again next year kind of deal.
You can do.
So I got over it, and I was still pissed off.
Sure.
And, real pissed off at this guy. But it is what it is. It's his property, and it's his decision. So I don't agree with it. I wouldn't do that to somebody else.
No.
But nevertheless, that's where we're at. So fast forward to November, I get a phone call. Keith calls me, and he's like, listen, I had a guy bail out the last week of the season. You want to come back, bring your rifle, come on back, and let's fill that tag. So that would be Thanksgiving week.
Right.
So
and you left the Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Saturday before Thanksgiving.
So let me interrupt Doug again. So he calls me and says, "Hey, I'm going back to Montana. I still have my rifle tag, so I'm taking the rifle with me, and I won't be home for Thanksgiving." I'm like, "Oh, this is going over real well. I can feel it." So I'm like, "Well, hey man, if it works and all you got to pay for is the flight and whatnot to go back out there, hey, do it." So okay, so go ahead. You left Saturday before Thanksgiving.
Yes, and my wife Colleen didn't say boo.
Right.
She
didn't.
And I said before I even got my hopes up about this, I said, "Listen, Keith called. I can go back Thanksgiving week. I'm gonna miss Thanksgiving.
Right.
Go ahead. You're crazy not to. You have to go do it."
Sure.
Okay. And she's great like that.
Yep.
And I've missed Thanksgiving dinner a few times over the 30 years with her. So never been an issue. So I'm lucky in that way. So go ahead, go do it. You got to do this. So that's what I do. Saturday morning, jump on a plane, head back out. Now it's.
But didn't you have issues with your flight?
Oh, I did. Yes.
Okay.
Well, I had issues in September with my flight.
Oh, that's what. Okay, I thought you had that time too.
No, I got out there. I didn't get out there until like 10 o'clock at night on Saturday.
That's right.
And I was assembling my bow and putting broadheads on at 11 o'clock at night in the lodge. I never shot the bow before the first Sunday morning. Just kind of throwing everything together. So but when I went back out for Thanksgiving, no issues. Get out there Sunday morning. Now this late in the season, it's a whole different approach. The rut is long over. You're not chasing rutting bulls at this point. Right. So totally different approach. We went into the elevations. Now there's no snow at this point. They had snow at the end of archery. The first week of rifle season in October, they had a ton of snow. They had 18 or 20 inches of snow. So that was all gone.
Mm-hmm.
It was cold, but there was no snow. So without snow, you want to get up into the elevations. That's where the elk are, because they'll stay up high until they get pushed down.
Right. Sure.
So yeah, that first Sunday morning, I was about almost at 8,000 feet. We were up there pretty high. And within probably an hour and a half, 2 hours of daylight, I see 3 bulls. And one is a 6x6. One is a smaller 3x3. And then there's a little spiker. It comes out, and I'm contemplating. It's about 200 at this point, it's about 220 yards or so. Mm-hmm. It's a gimme at that point, with a rifle, especially an animal that big, 220 yards. It's a layup. So it is the first morning though. And I'm contemplating, and I'm just going back and forth in my head. Do I kill this 6x6? Because he's not as big as the one I killed in archery.
Bow season, right?
Yeah, it's not as big. But this is it. This is the last. This is it. I'm not coming back again. This is it. So I kind of let him walk a little bit, and he kind of went up the hill, started walking away from me, and now he's at 340 yards, and I can still see it's him and those 2 smaller bulls. And I said, you know what? I text Keith. I'm like, what do I do? He's like, he says, you know as well as anyone, and this is what you always say. Don't pass up on the first day what you'd kill on the last day.
Right. So
with that, put the phone down. I shoot 340 yards because he's just about to enter this real thick pine grove. He's out in the open, but he's one or two more steps. Right? Yeah,
Spruces.
2 more steps and he's gone. Yep. He's in that thick stuff. I'll never see him again. So I shoot. He disappears, and he kind of went into that thick spruce. And 3 seconds later, here he comes again. The 6x6 comes out of the spruce and heading back towards, in my direction of the blind, but headed to my left, which, by the way, is also a property line because I'm hunting with my back to the property line.
Okay.
Right on the line. So I'm shooting away from the property line. So now he's heading back towards that. Now it's running through my head. Here we go again.
Yeah, you're going to lose the bull because he's going to walk across the property.
There's no way. There's no way I'm letting him get near that property line. So I hammer him again. He disappears. And that's it. It's kind of quiet. And I see the other 2 little guys just kind of meander off up the hill, and they disappear. And at that distance, it's hard to know.
Sure.
If you really, where you hit him,
right?
You hit him well, didn't hit him well.
So this is now where I'm going to jump in, because this was the best part of the story for me. So he texts me the picture of him sitting behind a bull, and I'm like, "Sweet, he got one. That's awesome." So that's the picture that you see currently on our Facebook page and Instagram page of him sitting behind his bull.
Yeah.
So about 2 seconds, 2 hours, not 2 seconds, 2 hours later, I get a picture of bloody pants. And I'm like, okay, so either he cut himself open or...
Which is what Colleen thought. I
Right.
sent her the same pictures. Like, oh my God, he's on the way to the hospital. He cut himself or hurt
yes,
himself.
he's in a vehicle. I can see him sitting in a vehicle.
Yeah.
So I'm like, either, okay, that's elk blood, or he sliced himself open while he was, cutting his deer up, or this elk up. So I texted him. I said, well, I hope that's elk blood and not your blood, and I don't get a response. He then texts me a few hours later, and I'll call you tomorrow and give you the story. I said, okay. Next day, I don't hear anything. Now it's Tuesday. I don't hear anything. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, I really hope that wasn't his blood, because this is 2 days. He hasn't answered any of my texts. And the last picture I got was blood on his legs.
Yeah.
So you came home,
Yes.
and then you guys came over to our house.
Okay, yes.
And
That's right, yes.
This is where the story gets really good.
Well, good.
Yeah, good.
Not good.
Yeah,
It's not good, but it's interesting.
Yeah, it definitely makes for the story. That's
Yes.
for sure.
Yeah.
So he comes to the house. Colleen and Marie and I and Doug and Colleen were sitting there and, having did we have dinner, or was it just like snacks?
I don't think so. Yeah, just
Snacks.
yeah.
So he takes out his phone and he says, so this is where the elk was. And he showed me a picture and I could see this area, and it's where he's in the blind. It's like almost like a meadow at the bottom of a mountain.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he said, so those bull came in this way, and that 6x6 walked up here, and he was standing in that snow patch, that little tiny, melted snow patch. And I said, okay. And I said, that's a good poke. And he says, so there's those spruce trees, that's where he was walking into. And I said, okay. And then he flips the picture and now he wasn't showing me the picture when he flipped it. He flipped it and then kind of paused for a second and said, okay, and then here's this picture. Tell me what's wrong with it. And I looked at it. I said, Doug, there's 2 dead elk in that picture. He said, yep. So now I'll let you continue from after you shot the bull that came out of the spruce trees.
Yes. So as I was walking up the hill, because I knew where I had shot, so walking up the hill, and I was with Josh, who was going to help me. Josh was going to help me, cord him up and pack him out and get him out of there. So we're walking up, and I from the blind, I could see there was a little patch of brown, like orangey brown, light colored hair that looked to me like an elk. And I said, you know what, because it was different than all the other rocks and dirt and branches and everything. It was different. It was a different color. So I said, Josh, I think he's laying right there. So he's looking, and he said, yeah, I think you're right. So we start walking up that way, and it's 340 yards. So it's a pretty good walk up and down, a few little, highs and lows. And we get to the last rise, and Josh points, and I go, oh, there he is. And he points up the hill. And I said, no, he's right there. He's 25 yards in front of me. We almost stepped on him. He's 25 yards in front of us, laying in this hole in this gully. He's like, no, he's right there. And now we're looking at each other like, oh no. So his first reaction was, we went to the first bull that was laying there, and he wanted to see if he was cold,
right?
And he's thinking, oh, maybe someone else killed it.
Sure,
what?
Just couldn't find it.
Oh
whatever.
no,
yep. He's steaming.
It's steaming. It's warm. I was like, oh man. So apparently, what had happened was the 6x6 that I shot originally went into that spruce. There was another 6x6 in that spruce patch.
Yep.
Already there that I had never seen.
Sure.
He was either came from the other way and I couldn't see him, or he was just laying up there.
Right.
And I just never saw him in the first place.
So your bull goes in, scares the shit out of that one.
Yes, he comes running out. And it's the same exact, it's a 6x6. They're identical.
Right. And at 340 yards, I mean, nobody I know can go, oh, no, that's not mine. Mine had a point like this.
Right.
So,
right. So 6x6 goes in, another one comes out. And I got to put him down. Yeah,
he's going to the property line.
Not down yet. I got to take him down. So another shot, boom, he disappears.
Right.
So that was my story. That's a big problem.
Right.
You got one tag, and now I've got 2 bulls on the ground.
Right. So, and obviously we're very, very conscious of game laws, and we do everything by the book. So the first thing they did was call the game wardens.
Yes.
And so, the game wardens were involved. It wasn't like he was like, oh, cool, I got 2 bulls. He was like, oh, shit, I have 2 bulls.
Yes.
So go ahead. So the game warden comes out.
Yeah. So he didn't come out.
Oh.
Keith knows him very well. So he knows him for, 15, 20 years. So
Gotcha.
he's like, listen, just take a couple pictures, get them both out of there.
Right.
Take them down to the processor.
Mm-hmm.
Your bull you're going to keep.
Mm-hmm.
And then the extra bull,
right,
you're going to donate that.
Sure.
So we took it down to the processor, donated the second one, and they kind of just, that was on Sunday night. So then Monday,
mm-hmm.
game warden came up just to meet me and talk to me and kind of get the whole situation. I had a bunch of pictures and I showed him exactly what I saw, my scenario, right. And he understood. And the two, so that we had the two heads there,
uh-huh.
In the shop, and they're identical. He's looking at them saying, they are identical.
Yeah.
And and he had said, listen, if one was a 6x6 and one was a 3x3, then I'd have a problem with that, right. Because you can't make that mistake. But because they were identical,
mm-hmm.
he understood, and he took the one rack and whatever they do with those, I'm not
right.
sure what the game commission does,
educational or something,
yeah, whatever
probably.
They do. So yeah, so that was it, and he had to go into the town court and
right.
let them know what had happened, and they've got to make a decision on how they're going to treat this, and
mm-hmm.
so he came back later that afternoon and told me, listen, you're not going to lose a license or anything,
right.
but there's going to be a small fine, blah blah blah. So it was a little fine, which listen, it was a mistake,
right?
But it was a mistake, so,
right?
And
someone's got a legitimate mistake, and
yes.
The big thing, for anybody that makes a mistake like that is obviously as soon as everything happened, it wasn't like, okay, we'll figure it out later. It was okay, get on the phone
yes.
with the game commission now,
yes.
Because they look at that stuff, hey,
absolutely.
You weren't trying to hide anything. You called us right away.
Yes, and I could have.
Right.
I mean, I'm in the middle of absolute nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a person on the planet other
right.
than myself and Josh that
right.
knew what had happened. So
sure.
I could have very easily grabbed my elk,
yep.
left the other one there, and in 3 days, the coyotes and the bears and everything else would
right.
have just disposed of it. It would have been gone.
Yep.
But that's not me. That's just not the way you go about things. So.
Absolutely not. And so that you guys understand, there's a fine and stuff. He didn't lose his license, which is good. He has no issues. He can get another license this year and all that fun stuff. But when you go and God forbids a mistake like that happens, is you have to pay to process both.
Yes.
So an elk is not a deer. It costs a little bit more money.
Yeah.
So that, it's kind of like a secondary fine almost because, hey, I made the mistake and you kind of have to pay for it because now you have to process not only your elk, but the elk that has to be donated to the meat kitchen or, whatever. And, the game warden, he was allowing you to basically choose the bull you wanted to take, right? The rack?
Yeah. Well, but I just based on where they were laying, I knew which one I had shot first.
Sure.
And that's the one I took.
Yeah.
So, that's the one I took. So, so there I was. And I had, so at this point, we were kind of joking about it, but it's really not funny. But,
right.
And he says to me, you do realize that you've killed 3 bulls in Montana this year. I said, yes, I understand that, because he was involved. He was the same game warden I was involved
right.
with the first one back in September.
Sure.
So that kind of that adds to the whole story.
Oh, absolutely.
I said, well, you don't know who I am, but I'm the guy who shot that one in September that you got denied access to. And he just looked at me like, you got to be kidding me.
Right.
You can't even make this up.
No.
So
so Doug is well known now as the Montana elk killer, but no. So in the key here is, so one, the reason, as I was telling you, when he went, radio silent for 3 days and I have no idea what the hell happened. The last picture I have is blood all over his pants. I'm like, oh my God, he died in the hospital in Montana. So the reason I didn't hear from him is because obviously he was dealing with some stuff with game wardens and whatnot. But the key is, and there's been, court cases about it and blah, 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 property line issues, so had he been able to get his bull in September, he wouldn't have been there in Thanksgiving to accidentally kill 2 bulls.
That's right. This would never have happened.
So that's, it's a takeaway. And we laugh about it. It's like, oh my God, he killed 3 elk. But, it could happen to anyone, especially in that situation where it's, almost 400 yards away. You're not, I'm telling you, I have 20/20 vision. You are not picking out that point unless that bull has a huge back scratcher or a drop tine or something that stands
really special.
out.
Yeah.
you have that, anybody can have that happen. And the goal is obviously, if that happens, is, follow the conservation law and call the game warden. If you're with an outfitter, get the outfitter on the phone quick.
Yep.
And then, there was no issue. The game warden figured it out. Of course, he laughed a little bit after he found out, hey, I'm the guy that was here in September. And, but it's huge, and it could happen to anybody. Yes. So that's why we wanted to tell the story.
Because this is real world.
Right.
Yeah. This is, it happens, that TV stuff where everything is edited out. This is real world. And it's happened before, and it's going to happen again.
Absolutely.
Hopefully not to me, but,
right.
But this is what happens.
Yep.
And it's unfortunate, but at least it didn't go to waste. The second one, fed a lot of people.
Sure.
So I guess there is a silver lining to the cloud, but
absolutely.
People benefited from it. Montana got a little money from me, so they benefited from it. But yeah, that is my 2023 elk season, and it's an interesting story.
And the meat is really good. So when Doug got it shipped, he did drop some off for us and some other folks. So we've been using it.
Yeah.
But, that's the other thing. We talked a little bit about it. I think it was last episode about, if you have ever hunted with an outfitter, kind of give us a lowdown on who it was. How was your experience? Blah, blah, blah. And we're not going to go into detail right now on who the outfitter was that he was hunting with. But that's the other key, is having a good outfitter.
Yeah.
Because there are those guys out there that were like, shh, no, we're not going to tell anybody.
Yes.
These guys were on the ball just as quick as Doug was of getting the game wardens involved and making sure everything was done right.
Yeah.
Because, God forbid something rolls downhill later that, he was hunting with who?
Right.
And now they have fines. They could lose their outfitting license.
Yeah.
So that's the other key and why we want to kind of bring that. If you have experience with, doesn't matter. Sorry about that, guys. We had a little technical malfunction there that for some reason our recorder cut out, which powers our microphones. But so what we were saying was with the outfitters, obviously the outfitters that Doug was with, they did everything the right way. So there was no harm, no foul. Yeah, it was a mistake that happened, but everything was taken care of and no issues.
Yeah. And in future episodes, we'll get into a little bit more about the outfitters and this one in particular. But this is Keith Miller from Montana Whitetails.
Yep.
Super guy. I know him for years. Been out there a bunch of times for deer and elk, and just a great guy. Everything is top notch, and not only is the hunting fantastic, but Keith is he's just a awesome human being. Which is a huge part of it. There's a lot more to the whole experience, more than just the actual hunt itself and the animals. Keith's a great guy, and his guides are fantastic, and I've become friends with them over the years, and it's more of a friendship now than it is, client kind of relationship. But we'll leave a link to Montana Whitetails at the end of this episode. And we'll in the future we'll go into more of it. And honestly, I'd like to get Keith on here one time.
Yeah.
Let him, talk about his operation and give you some more info. So.
Yeah, and you'll hear from a couple of outfitters that both either myself or Doug have used in the same situation where they're now more of a friend of mine than a business relationship.
Yeah,
but yeah. So again, if you have an outfitter that you've used in the past, we don't care what kind of animal it was. Shoot us an email, hit us up on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and we'll get involved with that. And again, as the episodes are growing, we will have plenty of guests on here, whether it's outfitters, whether it's, industry people, locals, whatever. So you'll hear a lot of different things. But this episode was key because, seasons, everybody's kind of getting jonesy now because it's starting to warm up. So everybody wants stuff to start happening.
Yep. And we had just talked about the application season going on. So this kind of tied into that. And yeah, so that's a wrap on the 2023 elk season for me.
But one that he'll never forget.
Never forget. No.
But so guys, we appreciate you tuning in every Sunday so far with episode 3 today. And we will be doing this every Sunday. We're a little early today than normal, but make sure you are following us wherever you listen to podcasts. Please hit the follow button and the notification button. And again, for those of you that want to see the video on the new Prime RVX 2, head over to our YouTube channel this afternoon. That will be up and ready to go, so you can see all that. And then we're going to do some video this week. We have to go out and run some new camera setups for one of our clients, so you'll get to see that on YouTube as well. In the meantime, again, wherever you listen to podcasts is where you can find us, except for Apple right now. I don't know what Apple's deal is.
Yeah.
You can't get on the Apple.
Yeah, I don't know why.
But other than that, you can find us on Spotify, Google, YouTube, iHeart, Podbean, a whole bunch of places.
Yeah.
So just definitely please share, listen, and we'll talk to you next week.
Okay. Thanks, guys.